本日はインタビューよろしくお願いいたします。
All right, can everybody hear me? Yes. Loud and clear? Perfect, perfect. All right. Thank you all for coming today. I am so excited to see you all here. My name is Ralph Fox. I'm going to be your panel host today. I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause. Coming out here, I'm very excited. So, to get a quick intro here, this panel is going to be kind of super simple. I found out recently that I have a lot of friends that have heard of Miku, but don't really know like anything else beyond she's a cute singer. So I just want to give everyone a brief overview today of what Vocaloid is, kind of the culture, a little bit about the game and stuff. We have some fun songs to listen to, game to demonstrate, a bunch to go over. Now I am not going to be reading everything off the slides because I feel like that's not an interesting way to do a presentation. There is a bunch of extra info on it for those of you who would like to take pictures to save some of the links and things maybe. But other than that, we're going to be burning through this so I can make it through this hour and hopefully show you all everything that I want to show you. So, to get started, every Vocaloid is a virtual synthesizer. Not every virtual synthesizer is a Vocaloid. Vocaloid is just the name of Yamaha's specific engine for their voice bank and characters. Most people do not care to use the term Vocaloid as long as, to refer to characters broadly, as long as we all know that we're talking about the same type of characters. For the purposes of today's presentation, I'm only going to be using the term Vocaloid because we're only going to be talking about Miku and her friends. Sorry if you were here for like Gumi or Alkulaps or any of the others. I promise you I'll do a big one like that someday. So, Vocaloid is kind of everywhere now. It's super popular, and how many people here think that they haven't like heard or listened to a Vocaloid for more than like 5 minutes? Not anybody. Okay, good. I was about to say, because one of my favorite examples to give people when they say, oh, I haven't heard Vocaloid is this fella here. It's one of my favorites, Puppy Cat. From being Puppy Cat, he was of course voiced by that very cute fellow there named Oliver. That's why he sounds like the way he does. If you haven't seen Being Puppy Cat, I highly recommend you go give it a look. It's a fantastic show. So before we get to Miku herself, we're going to go over a quick little history lesson about where Vocaloid came from. And of course, I got to introduce you to her friends because her friends are very important. Miku is part of Vocaloid 2. There was actually, preceding her, Vocaloid 1, part of something called Project Daisy. Now, Project Daisy kind of came and went without any real aplomb. As you can see, they didn't actually have like big characters or anything like that for it. It was just Leon and Lola. People thought it was very novel. However, out of that first wave, we did get Mako and Kaito. Now, you see her voice provided there on the right. Mako is for those of you who don't know, the red one. She's kind of like the older mom of the group. She was kind of hard to use at first because she was such an early Vocaloid, so she doesn't have like a whole lot of fans, but she does have a very dedicated fan base and some very awesome songs. After Mako, we got Kaito who came out, and I would just really like to point out here, his voice provider absolutely loves his character. You can see him on the left there, he's in front of like a little Kaito poster. He is on social media all the time, Kaito posting, retweeting Kaito art, he is fantastic. And both he and Heigo Mako sometimes perform some of their actual duets that were written for their characters. So if you ever want to actually see him and her sing, you can look it out on Mako's channel. It's very cool and kind of a full circle sort of thing. As for why those two didn't really do all that great, this is what they looked like originally on their box art. And this was 2004, so you gotta imagine, otaku culture was super big into the moe era. Everything had to be cute. If it wasn't cute, they didn't like it. As much as I love Mako's pose there, it's so dynamic. She's like, yeah, look at me, I'm holding the mic. It didn't really win any favors with anybody, right? So then Miku came out and she kind of set the world on fire. Her look is iconic. She's very cute. She sounds cute. If you take that little pose she's got there and you turn it into a silhouette, instantly recognizable by a ton of people as, hey, that's Miku. She was the first of the character vocal series. This was their kind of like rebranding after Project Daisy didn't go well. They said, well, what if we created a character, gave people a little few details about it, and she blew up. Her popularity was instantaneous, almost overnight. And I'm going to try to highlight that in some of the things we go over just a bit here. After her came the Kagamines. Now, of course, everybody knows them as twins. They are actually not twins, but Vocaloid has no canon, so if you want them to be twins, they can be twins. If you want them to be rivals, they can be rivals. It doesn't really matter. Most of us just call them twins because it's easier than explaining the whole wordplay with Kagamine and the word mirror. But they do only have one voice provider who has actually voiced a pair of twins in the very old Idolmaster series. How many people here have heard of Idolmaster? See a couple hands? Yeah, I think it's like started on the Xbox 360 era. Very old Idol Sim/slash music game. Very fun. So there's Ren and Lin, and after them, they were preceded by Luca. Now, Luca came out, she was the last of the six. She was supposed to be the like cooler, sexy adult kind of character. She's 20 years old. That's why she sounds a little bit older than Miku, and honestly, might have been why she didn't quite take off as well, because again, people into super cute. But she's got a cool design. She has like 80% legs there. I was looking at her old box art and I was like, why does she look like that? She's only like she's 4'5", so she's like here. Yeah, Luca's only 5'4", and Miku is 5'2". All of them are very short actually, except for like Kaito, who's usually drawn pretty tall, just like that fella right there in the Kaito next one. Alright, so those are Miku and her friends. It's very important to remember that they are her friends. They are usually everywhere, pretty close to where she is, even if they're not directly involved. So a bit about Miku's history here we're going to get to. Show of hands, who here knows the origin of the leak spin meme? Only a few? Oh my goodness. All right, out of those people who had your hands up, how many of you said Bleach? Yeah, it actually did not originate with Miku. This is, back in the day, Bleach was one of the big three, right? Bleach, Naruto, One Piece. They were everywhere, dominated every conversation about anime and manga. As you can see there, there's Orihime. She was very excited about buying groceries, and honestly, same. Me when I can afford groceries. So someone took that, put it in a flash video, and set it to the song that we all know today, Iev and Polka. Then a couple years later, Miku version came, and everyone kind of simultaneously decided that the leak was going to be forever associated with Miku. So now you can all go home and tell your friends you know the exact episode of Bleach that the leak spin meme came from, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. The other thing to know about Miku is the numbers. The 01 is kind of readily apparent because it's on her arm. It's because she's character vocal series number 1. It doesn't always have to be on her arm. Like I said, no canon. People will sometimes draw it like up here by her eye or on her clothing. It's just one of those kind of neat things that if you recognize it, you recognize it, kind of for the fans. Number 39 is a bit more complicated. It's for those who've been in anime and manga circles for a while, you know, Japanese has a bunch of different ways to pronounce things, and katakana, hiragana, etc. The number 39 is one of those. It can be written and pronounced as Miku. So the fandom has collectively decided that 39 is Miku's number forever and ever. It's in a lot of artwork that you may have seen before and just not recognize it. So now if you go back and you look at old art and you see the number 39, you know why it's there. It's also why we refer to March 9th as Miku Day. And that's when all this amazing artwork and everything else about Miku comes out. It's because of the number 39. Now, Miku was so popular when she came out, and she was one of the few virtual synthesizers to get upgrades every time they made a new version of the Vocaloid engine. Most voice banks are lucky to maybe get 1 or 2. Miku has at least 5. What you saw on her original side was her V2 look. This is Miku in V3. And it's not too much of a departure. There's just more details on the outfit. The shirt is now white. She also got an English voice bank because they really wanted Miku to succeed in the West. And hey, if you don't know Japanese, we'll give you something that you could, you know, maybe use for yourself and not have to go study a whole other language. Then came V4. V4 was big because she got a Chinese voice bank. Again, most vocalists do not get, or voice banks, most virtual synthesizers don't get voice banks in other languages. Miku now has one in Chinese and in English. They're really, really pushing at this point to make Miku a global icon everywhere. There's not really too big changes here. The hair gets thinner, which a lot of us memed on at the time. We're like, why is she in her balding era? Where's her hair going? Like, look here, you see all the hair. It's getting so thin, what happened? She's losing her hair. Then, of course, came Miku NT. This is when Yamaha and Krypton Future Media broke up. They sent each other a bunch of sad voicemails about it. Krypton makes their own voice synthesizer engine called P Pro Studio, and of course, Miku was the first character. Her design here is a little bit different. It's a lot more rounded, a lot fluffier looking, and the tie is now like a ribbon. And most importantly, they gave her all of her hair back. Right. We love it. We love a queen with hair. Now, of course, beyond just her official design, there's a bunch of derivatives out there that you may or may not have seen. Some like canon, some just fan-made. Two of the most recognizable are the Snow Mikus and the Racing Miku. Snow Miku is done by a yearly art design contest. They actually have the fans submit designs and then have the fans vote. So everybody can choose what they want that year's Snow Miku to be. You see they kind of started with the older ones at the bottom and then worked their way to the new ones at the top. Now, Racing Miku, for those of you who have not heard of Racing Miku, she's an actual race queen / figure for the Good Smile Racing Team. They're an actual Super GT 300 racing team. As you can see there, the car is kind of decked out in Miku livery. You can't see because they're in front. The drivers are in front, but it's got her face on the side. The ladies on the left are decked out in Miku outfits. They've won a total of 3 championships, which is very cool. They've won in 2011, 2014, and 2017. And I think one of the most neat things about the Good Smile Racing program is every year they allow you to sign up as a sponsor, and they will send you a figurine of your choice. And on the years that they win, they send you miniature trophies of the trophies they actually win, so you can put them with the figure, which I think is super, super wholesome, super adorable. It's a really, really cool community kind of moment. Now, of course, Miku isn't the only one with a bunch of fan and canon derivatives. 2 examples I can point out for the other characters. The adult reimagining of Rin called Future Rin. I know it says Future Style there, but I believe it's usually referred to as Future Rin. And the younger version of Mako called Sakine Mako. So these characters can be whatever you want them to be. They are very malleable. You want Miku to be black, brown, short hair, long hair, balding hair. Knock yourself out. As long as you aren't using them for cruel or hateful purposes, these characters can be reimagined in any way that you would like. And sometimes they'll get recognized, in actual games and stuff. Of course, just because I showed everybody else's new forms, I wanted to make sure I showed off here. The twins and Luca did, of course, eventually get new voice ranks to D4 and new looks. Twins still have like the whole sailor uniform outfit going, so it's not too big a departure. Luca got a cool, completely reimagined design. I kind of like it. It kind of is more in line with what they wanted for her, that a cool, older sister kind of aura, I think. So that's the basic history of the characters, who they are, their voice providers. So we're going to talk a bit about some of the songs here now. I put producers in front because it's very important that we credit the people that make these songs. Vocaloid is not AI. The songs don't write themselves. The characters cannot write songs. All of it is done manually by the actual producers. That includes lyrics, the tuning, all that other stuff to make them sound the way they do. So it's important that we make sure that we properly credit them. Now, Miku's got a lot of hits over the years, but I'm going to try to highlight how quickly she got popular when she first came out, about some of the earlier ones. Now, there was, of course, the one song that everybody used to do. Now, of course, there's the second song that everybody knows, kind of. Even if you're not a Miku fan, you've probably heard one of these at some point in the world. There's World Is Mine, and then there's Miku by Anamanaguchi. How many people are here are Team World Is Mine? Not a lot? All right, how many people are Team Miku by Anamanaguchi? Okay, I think it's because that one's more of an earworm. It's got the Miku Uyu loop, and it gets stuck in your head forever. But talking about how some of her songs got popular super quickly, World Is Mine, which is the one we were just talking about, that song came out in 2008, only a year after her release. It is the Vocaloid song of all time. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows the first 5 words or so. You have Triple Baka, which is one of her most notable memes. Don't worry about those 2 characters on the left and right. If you ask somebody about it, they'll start memeing on you about a song called Mesmerizer. But Disappearance of Hatsumi came out actually the year of her release. Now, this is a very cool song because she sings super fast without taking breaks to breathe in between words, which is something that we humans can't really do. It was a really cool way to kind of show off the technicality of how Vocaloids work and the kind of things that they can do that we can't. And then, of course, you have Rolling Girl by Wawaka, rest in peace, which came out in 2010. Arguably his most famous song, one that's touched the hearts and minds of millions, and it's responsible for a ton of people being into Vocaloid. That song, if you haven't heard it, is super duper important and absolutely worth listening to. Then if you're in the anime circles, you've probably heard Senmon Sakura. That came out in 2011. That song is 13 years old. Very popular people love the outfit there. She's got the like the old style Japanese military uniform with the sword. And then of course the Miku by Anamanaguchi song is actually 8 years old. Now I don't know if they wrote this because of the expo or before, but this song, Anamanaguchi toured with the Hatsune Miku band for the US Expo that year. And when it was time for the encore, the normal band would take a break and Anamanaguchi would come out and they would play the encore, which included their song, which I think was super cool to see. It's very fun. For those of you who don't know Anamanaguchi, they are a chiptune rock band, probably best known for doing the soundtrack to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. I have to denote the game there because there's like a million Scott Pilgrim properties and they're all called Scott Pilgrim vs. the World for some reason. Makes it very hard to identify. But those are like some of her older hits. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the actual things you can do with Miku. Now, Miku can be whatever you want, as you see there. There's no canon. And what happens is when we come to know Miku as a character, it's usually because of some of the songs that have been written. The songs are more than just these characters singing songs. They are often placed into roles. So sometimes Miku will be like a weatherman or a news reporter, and we come to associate her with those roles. Say, oh, she's such a cute X or she's such a cute Y. And you see people drawing that, that character or that song role because these kind of create their own versions of Miku. So in order to get a better view of like what the kind of metatextual view of how Vocaloid works, we're going to listen to a song here called Anonymous M by Pinocchio P. It is very recent and one of my favorite examples to kind of introduce people to kind of how it works when we use Miku and make her more than a character.
本日はインタビューよろしくお願いいたします。本日はインタビューよろしくお願いいたします。では軽く自己紹介をどうぞ。好きな食べ物は？趣味はありますか？すいません、年齢は？永遠に。渋いですね。悩みはありますか？なるほど、毛量ですね。他には何かありますか？それも人生ですね。人間ってどう思います？ウケるんですね。そうなんですね。では人間に一言どうぞ。ほう。食らってます？感動的ですね。そうですか。本日は貴重なインタビューありがとうございました。それではさようなら。
I have to like eat the mic to talk, by the way. So if you see me hold the mic very funny, it's because I got it like really close to my mouth. So the ways in which we use Miku and the ways in which we kind of make her a character. Part of what I really like about that song is she constantly refers to herself as not human, right? She's a piece of software, technically. But we find these ways to make her very human through the works that are created. Like she complains about having too much hair or the pressure of having to sing, which aren't really things that she would have to consider, but it's just a really cool way of making her into a real character. She even jokes about like someone's making her sing that, very kind of meta. The big takeaway from that song, though, that I like is where she says at the end that she's full of all these memories. There's this kind of shared belief among the fandom that when people make these songs, Miku herself is aware of them, and that kind of, in a way, brings us closer to her and her closer to us. It's kind of this way of creating this relationship to this really nice, cute pop idol who is locked inside a computer most of her life. So people have taken this and used it to turn her into a lot of things, and you can make her anything you want, right? She's been such things as like an assassin, for instance, which very odd job for an idol to have, but I mean, it's very cool. Or she can take cues from famous fables and stories such as Cinderella with Cinderella on there. Or maybe you want her to be something more, a little bit more whimsical and fun, right? She could be a drum major, for instance. And I just want to point out that little drum major dog she's got next to her with the little sash and the hat. That's like the cutest dog of all time. I love that dog. She can also be a flight attendant and have her friends with her who also decide to be flight attendants. They come in pairs, you know. Or she could just be gay, in which case, honestly, same. Any gays in the room? Any gays in the room? Anyone? Anyone? That one right there, officer. Private month is over. I kid. Or she could just be huge in Japan and fight Godzilla, which I guess is just the thing you do sometimes. When I first saw this video, I thought it was odd, but then I saw Godzilla -1 this year, and I realized, sometimes he does just show up and they just have to fight him. So hopefully Miku's around the next time he shows up. Or, of course, she could be a guy. There is a very well-known fan and gender swap of Miku called Hatsune Mikuo. People like to, get involved with this character just because it's a neat kind of take. The outfit's a little different. You see the hair is different. You often see sometimes people will cosplay this character as well, which is kind of neat to see, especially among like the millions and millions of Miku cosplayers. Or she could be a superhero inspiring bravery and acts of very cool stuff in others. I think the most important note about that one there is she doesn't always have to be blue or green. She could be red if you want. Or she can have short hair, bundled up into an afro. Again, these characters are blank slates for you to do whatever you want with. Now, of course, we are at a furry con, right? So you guys are gonna ask, what about furry Mikus? No one's ever done that before, by the way. Rabbits are usually the most common because people associate the long hair with long rabbit ears. You will see a lot of bunny Miku fan art in your lifetime. I think it's very adorable and it's a very cute kind of idea. The second most popular is usually canines. Dogs are everywhere. They're man's best friend. There's all kinds of species you can make them into. Just a lot of looks cool on her. Everything looks cool on Miku, honestly. Or you can go with something more unconventional. Hamsters, for instance, or even a little rat. I think the hamster one is super adorable. I love Hamtaro and his buddies, or Ebichu if you're an Ebichu person, but hamsters are like the most adorable little critters ever. Or she can just be Garfield for some reason. Garfield Miku is one of those recent memes that you just kind of had to be around for. Like it just kind of happened, and so now people decide to often draw Miku either like Garfield in like an orange color outfit, or draw Garfield as Miku. Honestly, either one. It's very funny either way, it's very cool. Or you can make her a fox, which again, no one's ever done that. Technically, my persona doesn't really count. He is just a Miku-inspired character, not really a Miku derivative himself. But people do call him Miku Fox, so I just kind of let it roll. It's a little column A, a little column B kind of thing. So of course, Migos came out, her popularity is through the roof. People were making all kinds of songs back in 2008 and 2009 that had crazy popularity. She's got all these Fanon and Canon derivatives, different Mikus. So people eventually got the idea to get together and have her perform in a concert. Now, the only hard part about that was they had to find a way to get Miku out the screen. Turns out that was a little easier than they thought. They just used a projector. It's a little more complicated than that, but Krypton Future Media keeps all the secrets of how they do it under lock and key. They don't really tell anybody because obviously it's their baby. It is not a hologram per se, and I just want to make that distinction because people have been using the term hologram a lot recently, and I don't want anyone to be disappointed when they see it's a projector on the screen. There are a few instances where it's been a television, albeit a really huge one, but that's kind of rare. We can't really know if they're going to continue with that moving forward. But if I can see out of this fursuit properly, I'm going to show you all a video from Magical Mirai, one of the concerts in question, of her performing one of my favorite songs, Heart Democracy by Mickey Dopey. Play button, help. Just so close. Is it that one? Nope.
Down left.
If you single click on the
Okay, we're going backwards.
left,
Left.
left, single
Okay.
single click.
There you go.
Thank you.
y'all think of the concert performance? Did y'all like it? So, what that was from, like I mentioned before, that's from Magical Mirai. That is one of the. Turn this thing off, button. Sorry, all technical difficulties are taking my butt today. My handler's not here, so I'm getting destroyed by technology. All right, perfect. Sorry, I gotta eat the mic again. It tastes very good. I love technology. So, Magical Mirai is one of many concert series in Japan, but it's the one I like to highlight and point out because it's the most accessible to us. It happens every year, and they do tickets via a lottery system. So, rather than having to do the Ticketmaster first come, first serve, which I'm sure many of you have hated and lost tickets out on before and stuff, they let everybody sign up. If you get picked, you can buy a ticket and then go to Japan and get to see Miku. It's very cool and very awesome, and arguably one of the biggest Miku events every year. Highly recommend, if you've been to a Miku Expo before, that you try going to Magical Mirai. It's pretty easy to navigate around Japan, and usually there's a bunch of people from the United States that also go, so you won't be alone. The one thing I really like about Magical Mirai is it's themed. So every year we get a new Miku derivative called Magical Mirai Miku. If you find a Vocaloid fan, usually everyone's got their own favorite. Mine is the one on the bottom right here with the colorful ribbons. I think it's very adorable. I love that one a lot. But these concerts are, of course, Japan only. It was a while before we got Miku in the United States. We didn't get to see her until 2011. Now this was huge because prior to this, all the Miku stuff was basically Japan only. The games hadn't come out in the United States yet. We didn't get any of the concerts. So to a lot of us, Miku was still just this kind of voice behind the screen. Getting a chance to watch this and see that not only was she, kind of real, but there were also thousands of other fans all there for the same purpose. This was like a huge, neuron activation moment for a lot of people back in the day, because it was like, oh my God, Miku is so real, and I want to go to one of these and just get involved in everything related to Vocaloid. It was also part of the reason why Krypton Future Media started to push stuff to the West, because this showed them that there was a really huge audience over here. Of course, we wouldn't get to see her until 2014 from Miku Expo. But before I do that, I got a little poster to give away here. Show of hands, who can tell me the name of the first United States city Miku Expo played in?
This year?
Nobody kind of, no, the first one ever.
That was for Miku Expo?
The first Miku Expo concert in the United States.
It was held in, well, that could be kind of a trick question because she did appear on the Tonight Show with
Actual concert, yeah.
The actual concert was in LA.
There you go. Everyone give it up for our friend here in the actual concert, yeah.
Before that concert, though.
Absolutely, we're actually going to get to that a little bit later. So, Miku Expo came to LA first. Now, everyone knows Miku Expo is this huge thing now, but back during the first one, it was actually really small. They only played 2 shows, LA and New York. So if you didn't have money to travel to the coast, you were out of luck. But thankfully, over the years, as Miku's popularity expanded, they started to add way more stops. Now, I don't have enough slides to show you every stop on every tour, but this is kind of where they added each one every year. Citation needed, obviously, but I think I got all of them right. But you can kind of see how she slowly started to branch out to other parts of the United States, Europe, Canada, Mexico. They've even had a Miku Expo online during the pandemic when we all couldn't, everything was quarantined. They used an augmented reality version of Miku and her friends to play with the band, and then broadcast that to the world. So she's become this kind of global icon that can transcend borders and play anywhere she wants. She's even toured with Lady Gaga, which was a thing that happened. And she also played at Coachella, which was also a thing that happened for entirely different reasons. But of course, the songs aren't the only kind of official media out there. Vocaloid covers a lot of things. For those of you who like reading or reading manga or comics or things like that, there's a bunch of supplementary material out there that you can find. Some of it is for songs. So like I mentioned earlier, when people make these songs, they make these characters and these own worlds. Some artists will take those and turn them into light novels and manga and actual extended stories, so you can continue to read more about these characters and the world that they create. My 2 favorite examples there are the Bad at Night series and The Disappearance of Hatsune Miku, which is a very heartrending light novel if you ever want to read something very Very nice, but also a little a little bittersweet. It's a very fantastic novel. There's also a bunch of like 4-panel gag manga. If you just want to watch Miko and her friends goof around, be cute, do silly everyday stuff. There's a little something for everyone. And Vocaloid is definitely not limited to just songs as a medium. Of course, there is Miku in anime. She has been appearing in anime as a cameo character since pretty much her inception. The Lucky Star one, as you see there, was in 2008. And then more recently, as time has gone by, people have actually started to use her as an actual character in the show. So she's not just someone who appears for a few episodes, she'll have a full-time role. Like you see there in Yakitori, which is a Netflix series, and then Shikalion, which is a mecha series. I never kind of had Miku piloting a mecha, but she did. Of course, despite all of this, she is not an anime character, so if anyone asks you what anime is Hatsune Miku from, it's none of these. These are all the wrong answers. She's just a Vocaloid still. Now, how many people here are new to or haven't listened to a lot of Vocaloid before? Show of hands. Okay, a few. These couple slides are for you because I kind of want to help people figure out where or what they can start to, what they can do to get into Vocaloid. Now, rather than giving you my recommendations and telling you what you should listen to, I always feel like the best way to get into Vocaloid is to kind of branch out through a genre that you already like. This here is a very big recommendation list. It's made in 2014, so if you go to that link, you may need to save the image and zoom in on it because it's from a time before we invented extra pixels. But it covers a wide variety of genres and songs and things like that. A lot of producers who are either still active today or are in other places, like for instance, there's Camellia, the rhythm game god, some of you may have heard of. He has like several full Miku albums, and they're all very awesome. Vocaloid covers a whole bunch of different genres. Like I said, it can be whatever, so it's very easy to find something that you like and then branch out from there. I myself am like a big fan of the pop, J-rock, bossa nova for some reason I can't explain, and electro swing, which I'm not going to apologize for. Now, of course, I am going to mention there are a few places where you can go specifically to find some of those songs on that previous image. VocaDB is a very, very huge database where you can look up anything, song, artist, character, find just about anything you want. Most artists have a YouTube channel now because that's how they post new songs, new videos, or even samples of their upcoming albums. And of course, there's a bunch of stuff on Spotify and YouTube hosted by like Krypton Future Me themselves as well, like that Study with Miku playlist. Who here has heard of the lo-fi hip hop and what is lo-fi hip hop to study and chill to? So they've made a version of that, but with famous Vocaloid songs, and they've turned them into lo-fi. And I know that sounds like a shitpost, but it's actually very good. So if you want some like good background music while you're studying or doing whatever, I highly suggest you look up that. A lot of Vocaloid music is, of course, because it's fan-made. A lot of it is available on CD, but most of it can be found digitally on the usual spots. Bandcamp, for those of you who don't know, is usually used by Western producers. It is an independent site where you can buy music directly from the people that put it on it. It's big here. I don't know how big it is in Japan, though. Of course, I have to mention a couple songs that I like recently and have been listening to. Some are new, some are older. There's a couple names there that, of course, are not Miku and her friends. Those ones are very near and dear to me. Everyone in the Vocaloid fandom usually has favorites, and I love those two. I could talk about them for like an hour, but this isn't the place. This isn't the place to do it. But no, if you like either Kazu or Kai, you can have a special place in my heart. They're both very, very, very fantastic. Of course, if you want to follow, keep up with Vocaloid, there is a bunch of places on Twitter that they use. I think they are just sticking to Twitter and Instagram. Tumblr is kind of dead. I don't know if they had a Tumblr account. But any sort of updates that you would want, concerts, merchandise, promotions, all that stuff are usually on their socials. Of course, all of us didn't get into Vocaloid through the songs. The games were a very huge part of it because they are fun and interactive, and they're a very good way to discover new artists and all that kind of good, neat stuff. But before I start yapping about the games, some of you saw when we were here earlier, I do have Project Diva here to demo. I do need a volunteer from the audience who would like to come up here and use the big arcade pad and play. The one in the first suit head there, you are very excited. Yes. Absolutely, come on down. All right, friends. So what are your names and what are your pronouns?
My name is Julian. My pronouns are they, them.
Okay, Julian?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Julian. Their pronouns are they, them. Everybody say hi, Julian. Julian is going to be demoing a song, if you would step around here, called Decorator. This is the theme song to Project Diva Future Tone. It is done by KZ, and it's just a very good way to kind of get people into what Project Diva looks like. So give us a quick second here to get set up.
Give me 1 second. I gotta move some things. It's gonna be fun to do in person. I do it all the time. Playing in person is very fun. It's a little challenging. I mean, yeah, very much. It is fun.
All right, everybody give Julian your energy.
It's a little slow. It's a PS4. It's old. PS4 looks old.
I've never put this skirt up. Skirt up. There's that word. They do that very well. I was very scared of my pigtails getting my
Eating a mic again. Sorry for the Monica jump scare there. I promise she's not that scared.
No shit.
There we go. All right, so that's Project Diva. It is, of course, the main Hatsune Miku video game series. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Project Diva's been around for a pretty long time, so I'm not going to talk about all the games because there is a lot, as you can see. This year is actually Project Diva's 15th anniversary. It's a very old, very well-known series. So I'm going to talk about some of the bigger ones, try to mention the ones that are still out there and available for those of you who want to play it. Of course, we can't talk about it without starting with Project Diva. This was the PSP title, or PlayStation Portable, Sony's little foray into handheld gaming. They kind of saw Nintendo making money hand over fist since the beginning of time with the Game Boy and said, we can do that too. And as you can see, they're not making them anymore, so it didn't work out all that well. But we did get some very cool titles out of it. We had things like Patapon and Luminous, and of course, Project Diva. Now this was, these were all Japan only, and this was 2009. Importing things was expensive, and then you had to deal with stuff like region locks. So most of us didn't really play this unless you knew how to like mod your PSP or do other things. It wasn't very like widely played over here in the West. Once they got finished with the PlayStation Portable titles, they moved on to Project Mirai. Now, the cool thing about Project Mirai is the only game in the series that looks like this. They all get very small and very chibi and very cute. We also get the addition of the green one. Her name is Gumi. Give it up for Gumi, everybody. She is very big over here in the East and West. She's very cool. She sounds cool. This is sadly the only game that she is in. We would love to see her return, but she is kind of locked behind Project Mirai. Free her. But the first two, just like the PSP games, were only Japan only. After Miku Nobis in LA and she got really popular here in the West, they gave us the deluxe version of the second game. So it is still out there. I believe the eShop is dead, so you can't buy it digitally, but you can usually find a used copy. It's maybe a little expensive. So I do have one more thing. So just to test people's knowledge here, show of hands, who knows the names of all 4 songs Gumi can sing in Project Mirai?
Oh, I don't know. I just like oh, it's like
Anyone? No? Okay, well you've already got a prize. I don't want to give you All right, who can name 3? Oh my god, where are the real fans at? Who can name 2?
Dodo Hole is one.
All right, who can name 1 song? 1 Gumi song from Project Mirai. All right, let's see. Who here got their hand up first? The first one in that back row there. And on the left, towards the aisle. In the middle row, I'm sorry, the middle rows. Yeah, you, right there.
Echo.
Say again?
Echo.
Nope, wasn't Echo.
Just a guess.
Next to?
Coma.
Say again?
Coma.
Say it louder.
Coma.
Como? Nope, wasn't Como. On this side?
Dodo Hole.
Say again?
Dodo Hole.
Nope. That is a very awesome song, though. Donut Hole is great.
How did she not do that?
Okay, with your hand raised towards the back there. You have to speak up a little bit louder because I'm wearing a Percy head.
Oh.
What did they say?
1-2 fan club.
1-2 fan club. There you go. Come on up here real quick. That is actually my favorite of the Gumi songs in that game. I love 1-2 fan club so much. It's a very, very cute music video. Mikito P is an amazing producer. There you go. So yeah, definitely give Project Mirai a look if you like Gumi or want to see one of the 4 Gumi songs. They are Happy Synthesizer, Invisible, Matryoshka, and 1-2 Fan Club. They modded, or excuse me, they redid Happy Synthesizer so that Gumi could take part in singing it. But that is one of the 4 songs she could sing in that game. After Project Mirai, or rather before Project Mirai, wrong direction, came Project Diva F. Now these were the PS3 games and the PS Vita, for those of you who have heard of the PS Vita. These came out before we got Project Mirai, because Project Mirai I think was 2015. But these were kind of like our first shot at the United States at an official Miku game. It's very cool. As you can see, the character models look a little bit better. We invented HD, so she looks a little bit more crisp than she did in the PSP version. A lot of the carryovers from the PSP title are present in this game. I think this one's a little bit harder to come by, and honestly, you're better off going with one of the newer versions, which is Future Tone, which we just saw Julian there demonstrate. This is the PS4/PS5 port of the arcade games. It is, yeah, I think it's pretty much still available because PS4, PS5 is still a thing. Doesn't matter which system you want to play it on. There were 2 versions of Project Diva Arcade. The newer one, Future Tone, is the one you'll see. It's kind of rare. They are at round 1s, and sometimes at conventions. Some of the arcade vendors that bring their machines to conventions will usually have 1 or 2 of these. You'll definitely spot them at anime cons. Furry cons is a little bit rarer. Like I've seen it at Furry Week in Atlanta like once or twice. So it is present sometimes. Like, how did you give it a shot? It is like this. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna have you all pass this controller around just so y'all can see what the actual arcade controller looked like. We can snake it around the room here while I'm talking about all this.
Thinking around, everybody can look at it.
Do be careful with it. It is very heavy. It is a big controller, but that's what the arcade version of the game has, that same kind of button layout. So there's Future Tone on the PS4 and PS5. Now, if you don't have a Sony system, you're in luck because they came out with Project Diva Megamix. This is on the Switch and Steam now. So those of you who have can play games on your PC. There's no real difference between the 2 games now. There used to be, but now they both have the same song list, minus like 1 or 2 songs. Not a huge deal. The only real difference I'd state is that the Switch version looks a little different. It uses a different graphics engine, different renderer. Characters are a little more colorful. And of course there's the Joy-Con modes, because it's a Nintendo console. I'm using motion controls. You can indeed use motion controls to play Hatsune Miku if you so desire. You can also use it as a tablet because of the screen touchscreen capability of the Switch, which is very neat for those of you who want to play games on the go. So if you don't have one of those and you still want to play a Miku game, there is Project Sekai. Now, I do have to give 2 very important notes here about this game. The first, it is not about Miku and her friends. As you can see, there's a cast of original characters there. Miku and her friends kind of help those original characters through their stories, sing songs with them. So if you want a game about just Miku and her friends, you're better off sticking to Project Diva. And second, it is a gacha game. I cannot in good faith tell people to go play a gacha game. If you lose all your money, that's on you. You can't say Raffleplox made me do it. Now, this is coming from someone that plays Honkai Star Rail. I love Honkai Star Rail. If they make Pom Pom a playable character, I have to sell all my possessions. But that is also an option. Now, if you want to play a Miku game and you're not a rhythm gamer, some rhythm isn't always for everybody. Well, there's another option out there. Nintendo's got you covered because there's Miku Fitness Boxing coming out this year. This is the weird, probably strangest crossover I've heard of Smoke in a long time. But people say it's very good. I'm very excited to see how it looks. Who knows? You know, it's fun. It's a good way to get in shape. Ring Fit was pretty good, so they have a pretty good track record as far as like the exercise games. So real quick, we're going to go into a little bit about Miku and some of the other games here. This is where I would have someone demo Megamix, but we're a little short on time. After the panel, if people want to stick around, I will gladly have somebody play Megamix for you all. They're not using this room again until 2 o'clock. So, Miku's been in a bunch of other games, and if you want to possibly play those, you want to say there's other stuff you want to hear Vocaloid music in, these are just a few of the titles that are kind of easier to come by. The first is Groove Coaster. Now, the arcade version of Groove Coaster was taken offline earlier this year, so it's going to become scarce in actual arcades. But I don't think they plan on taking the eShop version down. This has a crap ton of Vocaloid songs, including ones by characters such as Kafu, Iya, Gumi, ones that aren't Miku and her friends. If you want to hear what some of the other virtual synthesizers sound like, Groove Coaster is your best bet. Similar to its name, it is your character rides along on a rail, press buttons to sound the music, thus Groove Coaster. There's also Taiko Drum Master. Taiko is great, one of my favorites to play at FurryCons when they have it. I wish they had it here. It's a very good workout because unlike pressing buttons, you're sitting there and you're banging the taiko drums the whole time. It's a very, very fun game. You can find it on both PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch, although you would have to kind of go secondhand to find the actual drum peripherals if you want to go that route. She also made recent appearances in Mustache and Cryptid the Necrodancer. Mustache is the side-scrolling music game that's inspired a bunch of similar games like it, like White Album. It's got 2 lanes and 2 buttons. It's very simple to play. You press one button for the top lane, press one button for the bottom lane. That's it. It's very, very cool. Miku got added this year. And Cryptid the Necrodancer, I wanted to point out, because that game is from 2015. It is 9 years old, and they added her as a playable character this year. They are still updating that game, which is crazy to me. I will say, as a forewarning, Cryptid the Necrodancer is very hard. It is a difficult game. It kicks my butt. It is a top-down, as you can see there, sort of action exploration game. You have to move to the beat. You have to fight enemies, pick up items, fight bosses to go to the next level. It's very difficult, but very fun and rewarding if you actually can get into it. You may have seen some of their other games. They made Cadence of Hyrule, the upgraded spin-off on the Switch featuring a bunch of Zelda characters. And they've got an upcoming game called Rift of the Necrodancer. So it's very cool that in addition to, in between working on all their other games, they went back and added Miku to their most classic title. Now, there's one other game I want to talk about. It's not exactly a Miku game, so you have to bear with me. We're going to get there eventually. Project Diva is published by Sega. Now, when you all think of Sega, you can say this out loud. Who do you think Sega's most popular character is? Sonic, wrong? It's Shadow. What do you mean? Here's Shadow the Hedgehog, all right? He's going to be in the movie. It's going to be cool. Maria's going to get shot. I'm kidding. Of course, it's Sonic. It's always been Sonic. Blue Boy, fastest thing alive. Everybody loves him. So because Project Diva is published by Sega, Miku has an outfit called Sonic Style. Now, it's very cute and very adorable. Some of you may have seen it before. If you ever see people draw illustrations of Miku and Sonic together, that is why. People can't just resist the opportunity to have 2 of the world's most famous musicians in one image. Now, some of you are looking at me and go, what are you talking about? Sonic's not a musician. That's Sonic Underground Erasure. I will not stand for it. That shit was not great. It didn't get to finish for a reason, but it had some neat designs. I love Sonya. I think she's great. Also, so because of that, there is this fantastic mod called Sonic Mania and Hatsune Miku. Now, this is much more than a reskin of Miku over Sonic. It's one of my favorite mods of all time. I just wanted to show this off for you all because Miku is sometimes more than just in the game she's in. Even when she's not in games, we find a way to mod her into it. So I'm going to show you all the intro real quick, just so you can see that this is a real thing and not something I'm making up.
No audio either.
It's her. What's she doing there? How'd she get there? Well, my friends, there's an actual story to the game, believe it or not. The year is 2006. The virtual diva Hatsune Miku is performing a sold-out concert in Tokyo. As she does, so popular, right? Suddenly, a strange portal opens behind Miku. The crowd screams. You heard about it. Ah! But Miku is oblivious and gets pulled in. When Miku wakes up, she's in a strange forest in a strange costume. A talking two-tailed fox explains the situation. He explains the CEO of Krypton Future Media, who created Miku, has invaded this world. Even worse, he's assembled an army of Miku's black collaborators to assist in his takeover. Hiroki knows. The CEO is apparently planning to install Miku as the world's mascot and establish dominance over something called the Sega. To make matters worse, the world's legendary hero mysteriously disappeared after his last adventure. Oh no, where did Sonic go? That's actually canon, by the way. He disappears after fortune. But Miku's new attire gives him the legendary hero's ability. He decides he hates the CEO's plan. Teams up with the two-tailed fox named Tails to free the world from Krypton's control. Tails is face there. He's like, who is this girl and why is she gonna play Sonic? Fight Miku for everlasting peace! It's fun, like I said, I can't show too much of it because it would be a spoiler, but y'all definitely should check this out. It is amazing. It is one of my favorite mods of all time. Yes, please don't see me. it's very awesome. It's very wonderful. If you're at all a fan of Miku,
Terrifying.
I lost my clicker for a second there. I was like, where'd it go? So, hopefully this is giving y'all a little bit of a better, we're not quite at the end yet, but I just wanted to go over something. Hopefully this is giving y'all a better idea of how, thank you, how the kind of circle of Vocaloid culture works. The reason why some of us are so obsessed with these characters is because they become so much more than that. You know, even though it starts off with this company is releasing a character in their voice bank, you know, artists then take that character, they breathe life into it via songs and music. Sometimes there's fan fiction and writing. She appears in games and anime. And it gets to a point where we see her quite literally, pointer, work with me. Quite literally everywhere we look. It's impossible to stop seeing it. And that's the fun of it. Once you find out and fall down the Vocaloid rabbit hole, you just kind of never stop tumbling. And you never run out of resources or different ways to find out about these characters. They end up transcending their original medium and their original purpose, which I think is the coolest thing about them. It's all fan-made. There's no like corporation. Hatsune Miku can never mess up or do bad things. She'll never have a bad performance because she's pre-programmed, which is kind of funny to think about. The band members that even mentioned before in their interviews, they're like, sometimes there's pressure on us when we come on perform because we got to put on a perfect performance at these concerts, and Miku just shows up and does her thing all the time. She's fantastic. She'll never mess up. So that's kind of the bit of Vocaloid culture. There is one last thing to talk about, of course, and that is the merch. Can't be a fan without buying something. Let me tell you, there is a lot of stuff, and I do mean a lot of stuff. For those of you who haven't seen that huge Miku plushie before, it's gigantic. It's 3 feet tall and 5 foot wide. I let my friends talk me into buying one. The corner of the living room I have her in is just hers because nothing else can fit there. World is mine, more like living room is mine. Vocaloid merch comes in all shapes and sizes. Anything you can think of, from traditional stuff like, you know, calendars, watches, to even things like food items now, which used to seem strange, but now it's kind of okay. Don't eat the ramen, by the way. The ramen is not all that great. I'm only going to be talking about the figures because I've talked to some of my friends about them and they've never realized what they're called or where to find them. So the little tiny ones that you see, more commonly or not, are called Nendoroids. These are very chibi, very little, they're very cute. The cool thing about Nendoroids is they are all standardized. So if you have more than one Nendoroid, you can swap parts with any other Nendoroid, faces, hands, arms, legs. You can create a whole bunch of different and new combinations of Miku and her friends. That's why you sometimes see cursed photos of somebody putting like a Miku head on a figure that is not even close to Miku. That's something you can do. Other than Nendoroids, there are Figma. Now, Figma are not quite as big as the scale figures, but these are made to be ultra posable. They're kind of like those little wooden figures that you see artists use sometimes for poses. Figma are like that. They have articulation on pretty much everything you think of. You see their shoulder, elbow, hands, knees. You can put them in any kind of cool pose you want. It helps people if you want to use them for drawing poses and things like that. They are a little bit more expensive than Nendoroids, but again, that's because of all the articulation stuff that goes into it. The last type of figure is, of course, scale figures. Now I use this one as an example because it's extremely detailed. You cannot pose these more often than not, which allows them to put a lot more detail into the actual outfit. You can see there on the ribbon, the bow ties on both the front and back. There's all kinds of flowers and decorations. Most of the figures that you see come from, usually they're taken from songs. Like I said, the songs create different versions of Miku. That is one of them. It's from a song called Clover Club, the Project Diva. Usually they're not too expensive. Most of them are, on the lower end. Some of them, especially like the big ones that are like this tall, yay high, can go for like $300. So you gotta be careful. Make sure you're always looking at how big it is and how much it costs. You can find this stuff everywhere. Usually online is their best place to go. Fair warning before you go to, if any of you have never been to the Good Smile website, they make merch for just about any and every series you can think of. Hide your wallet, keep it somewhere safe. You may end up losing all of your money. They do sometimes put this stuff in person though. They have a partnership, for example, with FYE, For Your Entertainment, I believe they used to be called, which is in most malls around the country. You walk in there, you'll see a little section where they have all kinds of assorted Miku stuff. So you can find it everywhere, honestly. And so now we get to the fun part, where I get to talk to you all about the collabs now. You can't be a diva without making a few appearances. Those of you who know, no spoilers. I don't want them to know what I'm going to show last, but the collabs are fun. I'm going to be showing you all videos today, but there are a bunch of music video related collabs, like things like the Project Voltage, most recently with the collab with Pokemon, where they designed a bunch of different Mikus based on all the Pokemon types, or even things like Miku Baseball, where she gets to collab with the Japanese Pacific baseball teams, which gives us even more Miku derivatives, which are all very cute. See, each one there has its own uniform, its own very specific look. So the first commercial I'm going to show you all is from Family Mart. This one's very simple, very, very big softball, very easy to get into.
Miku Loves ファミマキャンペーンやってます。
あなたとコンビニファミリーマート。
よーい、
スタート。
あなたとコンビニファミリー。
カット。
なんとね、
オッケーオッケー。もう一回行きましょう。行きます。よーい。スタート。
あなたとコンビニ。
カット。
Who invited those birds?
すいません、カラスマッチです。
I think I should just wait patiently.
いきますはい、スタート。
あなたとコンビニフ
カットカット
ァミリー。
カット。すいません、ごめんなさい、本番中なんでちょっとごめんなさい、こっちでお願いします。
So I can't show you all of them, but I like the idea of having the kind of the outtakes there, because you don't really need to have outtakes. Obviously, it's just one of those cool ways to make Miku appear a bit more human. But I think it's very funny that someone had to manually go in and make her sound incredibly incorrect for that first outtake. So that's the first one. It's kind of an easy one to get into. Next, we're going to talk about this. Now, when y'all think about Miku, what do you think is her most prominent physical feature? Her hair, right? So of course she would be in a hair commercial. Why wouldn't she be?
いつもの自分はもちろん好き。でも、素敵な CM。いつか私も。まっすぐ踏み出そう。
She's so dancing.
ストレートフェアは一日持たない？答えはノー。
She gets to do her commercial.
ヘラ
That's
キン
what
コン
she
ペ
wanted
インアイロンショット。一日経ってもプレミアムストレート。ニューワックスストレート&ビューティー。
So I know some of you may have a couple questions about that one. So I'm just gonna get into it real quick. Was that a real commercial? Absolutely was. Aired on TV and everything. Was that really Scarlett Johansson? Actually, yes. That commercial is like 8 years old. It came out before AI ruined everything for everyone. And then lastly, what? Yes. Moving on. She's also advertised to us in the USA. Now, this one is great. I want you all, don't say it out loud, but just think of in the back of your mind, think of what your favorite food is. I promise you, whatever your favorite food is, it's not this.
You want a bacon wrap hot dog? Ooh. You want a Hatsune Miku?
ベーコン巻きホットドッグだ。
Hatsune Miku, Hatsune Miku, Hatsune Miku, Hatsune Miku.
Wait, how many of you, their favorite food was bacon wrap hot dog? They could even go for like the low-hanging fruit of like burgers, right? Normally when they talk about Americans and food, they talk about burgers. But there was another one that's even stranger than that, and that was her appearance on David Letterman. Now, to promote the Miku Expo in 2014, they had her appear on this show. All of us, when they announced it, were confused as heck because David Letterman is late night TV for your parents. We didn't actually know who they were trying to reach with this, but it is a thing that happened. I'm going to show you some of it, not all of it, but I want you to see just how weird this kind of was. The secondhand embarrassment was kind of extremely real.
Oh boy. Now listen to me. Our next guest is a computer-generated Vocaloid, a personality from Japan. And she is here in support of her expo in New York and Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, making her network television debut, Hatsune Miku. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Okay.
Okay, Miku, you can leave now.
It's like being on Willie Nelson's bus.
I don't get it. I don't think any of us got it. Why did they do this? Willie Nelson, everybody. Very good. Now, of course, there is one other thing I want to show you all, but before I do that, I just want to thank you all for coming out here. Give yourselves a big round of applause again. This is my first time ever running a panel. Anthrocon is a huge deal, and everybody's time is very precious. You could be anywhere at this moment at the con, but instead you chose to be here with me. Before you all leave, at the very back of the room, to the right of that standee there, when you all take off, there is a postcard and a sticker. I would like everybody to take one as a show of my thanks for coming out here. And thank you. And for those of you who would like to stick around and see Megamix for a little bit, you can do that right after we play this video. So without further ado, I present to you the most amazing Hatsune Miku collaboration of all time.
Hello everyone, I'm Scott, president of Domino's Pizza. Have you heard of Hatsune Miku?
No.
Today I'd like to announce a new collaborative project featuring Hatsune Miku. Domino's app featuring Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku exists in a software called Vocaloid. Vocaloid enables you to produce songs. A character named Hatsune Miku sings the songs you create. A great feature is you can create songs as you like. I knew our talented Domino's Pizza crew could work together and create great Vocaloid songs. Bokoropi, Eshi, Chokyoshi, Furitsukeshi. Everyone. Amazing Vocaloid songs have been created with the fantastic imagination of the crews from all over Japan. The challenge was successfully carried out, and this new collaborative act was produced.
She loves Domino's so much.
Based on Miku's image, the Domino's app changes its appearance. A lot of music and illustrations produced by Domino's crew are here. From the menu to the order, it looks very cute, just like Miku. Once your pizza's delivered, have some fun with Miku. It comes with a social camera function and you can take various poses, pictures of Miku. Very cool. And last but not least, the live performance. Start the pizza stage live and point the camera towards the pizza box, and the pizza box will turn into a live dancing venue. A live performance of Love for Night, produced by Domino's crew. Here we go! Let's enjoy the rest of the performance with the app.
Thank you all for coming to my panel. Appreciate y'all so very much. Get out there, enjoy Amazon, and most importantly, have some fun with Miku. Take care, everybody. Thank you all.